Thank you. Stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the order.
Mr. Benton?
Here.
Mrs. Boer? Here. Mrs. Davis is absent. Mrs. Thomas? Here. Mr. Swager?
Here. All right, I think everyone knows we're here to have one discussion topic, then we're going to take a break, go over, do the tour, then we'll come back and take questions and stuff, any other questions that you have. That way we can do the tour first and come back. So, with that, Mr. Dixon?
Yes, the board wanted to meet in special session, have time to look at this one recommendation from last board meeting. So you tabled it until tonight with regard to a $40,000 expenditure toward band uniforms that are going to run what they believe is a maximum of $120,800. So we have a recommendation before the board to support this co-curricular activity by purchasing or lending, giving them $40,000 toward their purchase of new uniforms. Not sure how much more information you need. We've gone over the information before. Basically, they're 17-year-old uniforms, time for replacement. It is a co-curricular activity as opposed to an extracurricular activity, meaning it's a graded curriculum. And it's very typical for boards to help co-curricular activities out in the way of instrumentation and uniforms like this. It is in line with what we've done in other areas of co-curricular work in partnership with limited general fund dollars going toward total purchases, so long as it's partnership with the community. So it is a recommendation that we would support the purchase of the uniforms to the tune of a maximum of $40,000.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second? I'll second. Discussion. I think we all still have a few questions, and I don't know who wanted to start with these, but have we gotten the copy of the prototype back? I was in Mr. Dixon's, talked to him about this, and they said that you guys ordered one of them. Do we have a picture of what those look like, or have we gotten that, or a time frame in shipment? Okay.
When is the final date that you can still order these and have them available for your use by August, I believe it is, it's your goal? Schedule. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you could just repeat that for the.
Sure thing. I was just saying that they don't have a specific date, but the earlier we get on their schedule, then the earlier we will get the uniforms back. So the longer that we wait to make the order, that will extend when they would be arriving.
I'd also like to ask, have you sent any requests to donors that have supported, say, the cake auction and bought several hundreds of dollars worth of cakes that they didn't really eat? They just did it because they like you and they want the band to succeed. Have you sent any of those people letters requesting, their contributions for this cause?
I have not. This is the only letter that I've written so far to this point.
And the second thing is, did you go to any of the foundations in our community to see if they would do any matching funds, given that we see that it certainly is a partnership with the community in many ways. I hear such fine comments about the band as I'm sitting at ball games and other things, other events. I hear so many people praising it. I can't imagine that we don't have people who want to be a part of seeing the new uniforms and being a part of a specific event, which, as I said the last meeting, I know I've contributed and was really happy to do that. And I felt a sense of ownership with, I helped do that. It's really great.
Mark, I know that in some of our discussions, but perhaps in helping answer some of our discussions, you talked broadly about the budget and how you've set aside money each year toward uniforms. You also have a plan to take the band to Disney next year.
That's correct.
You're raising a lot of money for different projects, and therefore you have gauged your ask with the donors. Could you address that maybe?
Well, we are going to, Disney in December of this year, and I guess I was waiting to see how the fundraising were to go for that trip. So, if I needed some help to get some kids to go on that trip, then I was going to, go ahead and engage some of those stakeholders for that.
So my understanding, Ruth Ann, in helping to answer your question, in my talks with Mark, they have tried to set aside a certain amount every year for uniforms. I think they've done their due diligence there, not expecting the cost to be what they ended up being. So some of this delta from what they have put in the uniform account of the boosters versus their other account, which they're using to raise funds for Disney, the delta came out a little higher, and that's part of the reason why they ended up coming to the board for some support to the tune of about a third of the cost.
I understood that coming into the meeting. I just wanted to ask the questions. Kim, do you have any thoughts?
I have another question. Do we have a quote or an invoice yet? I know you haven't, actually, it wouldn't be an invoice, a purchase order for them yet?
I do not know. No. They sent a rough draft, like a rough estimate of what the cost would be, and that's all that I have right now. They said that they did go high on everything, just so so really that 120,800 was a maximum of what it would be. It very well could be less, but I don't know that. I don't know that yet.
And that's for 180 uniforms?
For 200.
200 uniforms.
You got it.
Thank you.
I'm struggling again, as we repeated what we had at the last meeting. I'm still struggling with the process that we haven't done some of those things. I'm certainly am aware of how we target our donors, but some people choose to give to this part of what you do, and some people choose to be in this part of it. I don't know about everybody in this room, but I know certainly every Tuesday we get a host of letters from different organizations such as St. Jude or whatever it might be, asking us to give. And really what you end up doing is looking at everybody you give money to, and then you choose what you want to do. So you may choose this one this year and that one this year or whatever. You may choose a myriad of them and split your contribution. But I still think band uniforms are something that's so local, and I take pride to see you out there on the field. So I'm a contributor, but I'm also concerned about the process, because you don't have that invoice that says this is exactly what it costs. So it's not a reprimand. It's just I feel more comfortable as other people come to the board and want a relationship. I would feel more comfortable if we had a little more definite numbers. Okay, I've said enough.
Is there any possibility to reach out to any of those foundations to see? I mean, when we had the weight equipment in the co-curricular there, we did a dollar for dollar match from the board, for what the athletic boosters were able to raise. I don't know if there's any opportunity like that here still to reach out or not. So, I mean,
Are you asking me? I mean, there's always the opportunity to ask
right.
other entities. It's just when you're juggling multiple projects, the ask can become many at one time. So I think what I've heard is this struggle with the band is the projects with uniforms and the Disney trip at the same time. yeah, it's always possible to ask for more money from various entities. But we try to gauge our asks, so we're only going to the well so often for different projects in the district. And I know we're talking about band here, but on the broader spectrum, there's other asks that we do of these people and foundations. So I think we want to be judicious on what we ask. I'm not saying it's not out of line, Tim. It certainly is in line to make these asks for projects. We want to be judicious in it.
One of the reasons I asked, like I said, historically, we've tried to do that when we do assign taxpayer dollars to projects like this. We've tried to do like a match dollar for dollar to encourage some extra fundraising at the same time and encourage people to know that we'll match dollar for dollar. And that way we can kind of coexist there and get to where we need to be. So that's why I was asking if any of the foundations were.
And I don't know how
approached.
much of the 80,800 might have come from some of that over the years going into there. What makes that up? Certainly we've had other projects, weight room, et cetera, and we partner with like boosters, and then boosters raise money in a sundry different ways. So I don't know the booster budget. We don't monitor that. That's kind of kept separate. But the booster budget, they might have other dollars that have been donated to make up part of that 80. I can't answer that, but
I would bet that's true.
yes.
And that's why I'm not
That's-
familiar with
that's
how
that's a
you
normal
fundraise.
way to do it in a small community. I'm just saying, everybody chooses at a given time.
Sure.
Have you gone to the foundations currently for the Disney trip yet? Would it be a double ask?
No, I've not gone to them about the Disney trip yet, no.
Okay. When would,
I would think typically if you were going to a foundation or a local foundation, can you hear me, Dale? I'm sorry.
I can hear. I just have this
It keeps going red and green, so I'm not sure if my
It's this-
battery's dying, but
air system that's
okay. But typically when you go to a foundation or a grant, they would rather give for the whole, not for a specific, like for the Disney trip, if you had students that couldn't come up with the full amount, you would have a list of, say, 10. They wouldn't really want to do just 10. They would want to give to the entire band, which would be a donation of a lump sum donation for uniforms or instruments, something like that. That's typically what I've experienced.
And they do that, right? The cake or the cake auction is a perfect example of that. And many of the people in this room donate, enormous amounts. It's difficult to, you're not buying a cake made by an 8-year-old student and paying $300 for the cake. You're donating really to the, you want the student to feel good about what they've done, but you're also donating to the band. So a lot of their funding comes from the cake auction, I know, every year. And you're really just donating in general to the band, which, you're looking, I think, as a community member, I look to donations to the band as for instruments, for those students that can't afford to participate in the band, that we want to see them have that same experience, even though they may not be economically able within their family to always participate, and the band gets lots of donations. They get donations of instruments every year. Some of the students leave their instruments behind. I know my family did that. So everyone does donate to the band as a whole, and not necessarily for specific events.
I just think one of the major differentiation points that we need to keep in mind, and I know you all know this, it's just the fact that the co-curricular nature, this is a graded activity, this is a classroom. Marching band is a classroom. Concert band is a classroom. Vocal music is a classroom. They are co-curricular graded curriculum as if they were sitting in an English class, and we support the instrumentation and the products. So it does make, it's not out of the realm of reason for a board to support with general fund money co-curricular programs. I think you'll find checking around, it's fairly common.
Well, that's why
And we have in the past. We've
that's
bought
why I
instruments.
compared it to the weightlifting, because weightlifting's a class, and we but we also co-funded it. That's why we did the dollar for dollar match. That's why I was making that comparison, because they're both co-curricular activities. So that's what I was looking at when I
Yeah. And that's the
mention those.
spirit which I brought it to the board.
Yeah.
Would you feel like there's some time to do this? Let's say, would you have another month to execute a couple other ideas to raise some money? We certainly have been there with you when you came to ask us for some tubas. We stepped up because obviously we want you to have the tubas, and we were very proud as we see them out there. So I think it has happened. I'm just saying, could we go to a couple other areas before we actually just say, here's a check?
I mean, I'm going to do whatever is necessary to do
Yep.
what's best for kids.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to do. I'm the band director, and I'm trying to keep the band moving forward, because if you're not moving forward, you're dying. So that's kind of whatever I need to do to get the job done, I'm going to do.
Budget-wise, if the band boosters were to pick up 100% of the $120,800, what impact would that have on your total budget?
We typically, so we try to keep between 40 and 50 grand in the account at all times. That way we can make deposits if we need to make them, big deposits if necessary. For example, the Disney trip, I wanted to get approval for that early last year because all the prices were going up. And so we needed to get that deposit in so we can lock in the prices before they jumped up. And that was a deposit of 33 grand. So that's why I think it's important that we try to keep a balance of about 50 in there at all times. Also for band camp too, when we have to make a deposit for band camp. So right now, our entire booster budget right now, we have 185,000, but 80,000 of that is earmarked for uniforms. And 29,000 of that right now is earmarked for the middle school. That leaves the high school balance at about 80. But we are also, as a booster, is going to make another Disney deposit here shortly. That will come out of that money. So it will be back down to about 50, that threshold, that base point, really.
I think that helps having a perspective of that budget.
Yes,
Thanks,
sir.
Mark.
Yep.
All right, any other discussion? I just taking notes, sorry. The thing I do want to mention, moving forward, and I know we discussed this at the last board meeting, but either way, I think this does need to get kicked to the policy committee to come up with a policy of how we're going to handle co-curriculars in general,
I
not
agree.
specific to the band. Just
Yeah.
so the board has a standard policy. This is what you're expected to raise. This is what we'll contribute. That way there's no, because the weight room and I don't know how much you're coming for instruments. So if I say yes to this and then, 3 months from now you come back for 300,000 on instruments, how do I say no to instruments if I said yes to uniforms? Does us no good to have students in uniform if they don't have instruments? So those types of things are where I'd like to get the policy set up so we as a board understand and all agree as to what the expectations are, and to be fair to the boosters, so they know what they have to go out and raise and contribute it.
And to provide consistency for
Yeah.
this board and future boards.
Especially with the uniform
helps.
prices going up, and if they continue up at that pace, obviously, again, hopefully they'll last 15 years, and I won't be here to be the next person to have to deal with it. But I like to set up future boards with good policy. So
Absolutely.
that's where we're looking at.
We also talked about already, when after these uniforms are purchased, we're going to continue to set aside money, but we're going to set aside more. For the past how many years it was about 5,000 a year. We've talked about upping it to about 8,000 a year. So then that way, we're trying to be prepared as possible when this happens again. Like you said, about 15 years from now or so.
Okay. I
And
appreciate
then
that.
the other thing is we need to make sure we have guidelines about quotes,
Yeah.
invoice.
Yeah, stick that in
But
that same
we really-
policy
We really
is,
shouldn't be talking about things without having actual firm quotes in hand.
Yeah, you can have your general policy, and then under that, you have guidelines for how to procedurally carry that policy out. So I'd be happy to draft up some ideas and take it to the policy committee for consideration.
And I'm sure the policy committee will work on that, as
Yeah.
I'm a member of it. So I know Amanda's not here today, but I'm sure that she's open to it.
Yeah, I mean, I just, like I said, for future asks, I just want to make sure we don't have these long discussions. We just, these are the guidelines, move along.
Yeah, the policy would generally set the expectations, then the guidelines would maybe set timelines for when people need to have and address the board with such issues.
Okay, with that, I guess we have two motions, we have discussion. So we got to call the roll on the motion.
Mr. Benton?
Yes.
Mrs. Boer?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas? Mr. Swager?
Yes. So the motion carries, but with the asterisk of, we'd still like to see if you can get matching funds. We voted for a maximum of 40, and then also to develop that policy as part of this. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
And as I understand, I mean, the band boosters are in for 80,800. So if it comes in at less, it's less from us as a taxpayer's standpoint than it is.
That is-
It's not
that
an
is
even
absolutely
split.
correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. All right. With that said, we're going to take a video break from the meeting and go on a tour. And I don't think we're going to videotape our tour. So we will be back to complete the meeting later. Thank you.